Hey guys, welcome back to another Tumbler tutorial. Today we are going to be combining some of my most recent tutorials into one design. I got the newest May Peachy palette and I was immediately inspired and wanted to start this. So I just started creating this at the beginning of this week to finish for this week's tutorial because I was so excited. So I hope you guys love this one. So what we're going to do is start out with a 32 ounce plump from the Tipsy Magnolia. And I did buy one of the pre-prepped ones, so this came prepped white. I didn't have to do any sanding or spray painting or anything like that. And I will tell you guys that I was so excited to start this, and I did not lay out a plan like I should have. I just immediately started putting glitters on the cup, and I definitely stressed myself out and I did things completely backwards. So I'm going to show you what I did and then I'll tell you what I would do if I were you replicating this design. So we're going to lay down the vinyl stencil from the butterfly wavy template that I had left over, and I'm going to spray paint it in rainbow order with iron lac from Hobby Lobby. We're going to let that spray paint dry once we've got a good blend on those spray paints, and then we're going to use the epoxy method to apply the glitters. So what I would have immediately done different on this is I would have not put the stencil down first. I would have spray painted the entire cup in rainbow and glittered the entire cup and epoxied it. And we're going to save the vinyl for last after the checkers have been completed. So we are not going to do the stencil. We're just going to glitter everything and then epoxy it just like I'm doing here, except we would epoxy the entire cup. Yes, you're going to essentially just waste glitter, but the amount of time it would save you from having to take things off and trim around the wavy lines and mess up the checker paint like I did, it just would be so much easier. So just glitter the whole thing. It's just a little bit of glitter. It's fine. So this is the newest May Peachy palette. This pink glitter looks like a small cut of Bailey. The Talk to You Later TTYL looks like a small cut of Gypsy. And then this purple Phat is a smaller cut of Rowan. The pink and the purple do have some like matte glitter mixed in. It's more like pearlescent more than matte, but you can't tell with it mixed into that fine glitter, so it's really pretty under epoxy. Doesn't look matte at all. I personally am not a fan of the matte glitters, and I loved how this turned out. So this last one is Booyah. This has got some, I think it's got Venetian in it, which is that ivory chunky glitter, and then it's got some silvers and some holographics in there. It's really pretty. So we're going to start laying down the glitters. I'm using As If because it's a chunkier glitter. Right now we're just kind of road mapping out where we want our glitters to lay and not going full coverage. You'll notice that I'm going very light-handed on this. And right now I'm not tipping my glitters because I don't want them to stray too far from the spray paint colors. So I'm just going to very lightly sprinkle where I want them to start and stop. I am going to go a little bit down into the color above it and below it, but not so much until we get to our finer cuts of glitter, just because I don't want to cover up all of that epoxy. And then if you do that, you're not going to have any epoxy left for the finer glitters to stick to, and that's going to prevent you from getting that good blend. Once you have your chunkier glitters where you want them to, you can start going in with the fuller coverage of the finer cuts and I'm going to go in just top to bottom. I did go in pretty full coverage with the purple at the bottom, but I didn't have a chunky purple to use with that, so I kind of blended it into the finer cut of the gypsy blue at the bottom. So disregard that. If you've got chunky, just keep following the same process of laying the chunky down and then blending the fine in. Once I've got the blend that I'm going for, I'm going to take my printer paper and just pat down the glitters. We don't want any chunky pieces sticking up. If you've got chunky glitter sticking up, you're gonna have to use more coats of epoxy to cover that glitter to make your cup smooth. And then your cup's gonna turn into a heavy weapon. So we don't want that. Once you've got that all patted down, we're going to immediately remove the stencil, or if you're gonna do things the easy way, like I would recommend, you're just gonna put that on your drying rack overnight and let that sit and cure. And then we're going to spray seal it with Krylon triple thick spray a couple of times to make sure none of the glitters move. After the glitter is dried and sealed, I'm going to put this on my turner with about 40 milliliters of Flynn Sisters epoxy. I did use the fast set here, and I'm going to not put epoxy on the bottom because I did remove the cap from the bottom of this tumbler. I do want to fill it with glitter at the bottom, so you can omit that if you're not doing a glitter booty. If you are, make sure you pop that off prior to epoxying your cup, otherwise you will not get it off. So here is another struggle that I did, and you guys, I always want to be transparent with you guys, so I'm gonna leave this in here and show you how I struggled and why I would recommend doing things the easy way. So I definitely struggled with applying this. This is really edited, but I ended up having to use the hinge method to apply this vinyl, but I also had to get some painter's tape out because I could just not keep this vinyl in place. It kept shifting every time I would lay something down. It would go off the rails on the top part of the tumbler and vice versa. So I would recommend, just like I said, glittering the entire tumbler, and then you can just slap the vinyl on after it's been cut. You don't have to worry about it fitting within these white lines here, and life will be so much easier. So I'm gonna let this play through, and I will see you guys in the next step. I did get a teeny bit of wrinkling at the top, so I used my cup edging tool to just cut the top a little bit off of there so it wasn't all crinkly. It didn't make my epoxy pokey. And then once that was cut off, I'm going to use my Dremel to sand down that rim to expose the stainless steel. Next, we're going to go in with another coat of epoxy, and we're going to use this entire Peachy palette today on this tutorial. So I used a little bit of Booyah. It does have quite a few fine cut glitters in it, and I wanted something a little bit more chunky because I didn't want to take away from the smiley faces. Again, I wanted to just add to it a little bit, but not take away from the overall design like usual in all of my designs. So I added a little bit of Venetian in there to get that chunkier glitter look in there, and it worked out perfect and complemented the smiley face vinyl so well. And here I would recommend just being very careful on how you're mixing up your, or like disturbing your epoxy, I guess I would say, because it does cause micro bubbles in there if you're being really aggressive and handling that epoxy quite a bit while you're laying those glitters down. So just be mindful of that. Make sure you're popping any micro bubbles. And then we're going to go in and lay down some more stencil vinyl with the Checkers. So this is another area that I messed up. I was able to fix it and kind of recoup from the overlap of the Checkers here, but if I were to do this again, like I said in the beginning, at this point we would not have any vinyl on the cup. We would just be laying this down over the entire glitter surface, and then we would spray paint it. What I did here and what was wrong, I measured this seam in the wrong spot. So the seam was like smack dab in the center of the glitter. I lined it up with the top of the vinyl, and I don't know what I was thinking. I shouldn't have done that. I should have put the seam over the smiley face vinyl so you couldn't see it, and it ended up overlapping just a little bit, and one of the rows of Checkers is a little bit smaller than the rest of them because it overlapped and you didn't get the full-sized rectangle or square or whatever in there. Rectangle in this case because it's a long tumbler. So I would recommend not doing that. If you were to put this on, you could just, like I said, slap the vinyl over top of the seam like I did in the butterfly tutorial a few weeks back. You wouldn't even see it. So we are going to make sure everything is laid down. I'm going to cut around the smiley face wavy line here because obviously we're not going to spray paint over the vinyl. And then we're going to tape that off and spray paint this black. I did spray paint the top of the tumbler as well, where I cut off the vinyl with the edge trimmer, as well as the bottom, because I wanted to have a good kind of seamless design into the bottom glitter booty of the tumbler. So I'm going to spray paint everything once I make sure all of this stencil is laid down. Just be really cautious that everything is laid down tight onto your tumbler. If it's not, that black, not epoxy, the black spray paint is going to seep under that stencil vinyl, and then you're not going to get those good crisp lines that you're looking for in a checker design. Peeling stencils and tape is my absolute favorite thing to do in a design. It's so satisfying, it's so rewarding, like after you spray paint it and then you get to see the end result and all of your hard work kind of come to fruition. So I absolutely love this portion. I hope you guys enjoy me pulling the stencils. This is like ASMR to me. I absolutely love it. So I'm gonna let this play through, and again, I will see you guys in the next step. If you've ever used UV epoxy with a dark glitter, you'll know that it sucks. I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. It does not cure because the light can't penetrate through the dark colors, the UV light can't. And so a lot of times it stays squishy if you don't do it in sections. So one of my tricks is to fill the cavity of this tumbler with just plain UV epoxy. It's not going to have to go through a bunch of dark glitter. It will cure within just a couple of minutes, completely rock hard. And then I'm going to do my second half of the cavity with Caviar, and then it's not going to have to work so hard to cure that epoxy and penetrate through the dark glitters. I wanted to put my acrylic logo tag on, but the epoxy was too thick, and if I had just laid it down in there, it would have sunk underneath the epoxy. And so what I just did, I just flashed it a couple of seconds, like probably maybe 3 to 4 seconds in total, just enough to get this super, super thin layer of cured epoxy on the very top so I could lay my logo tag down. And then I'm going to kind of press it down into the epoxy and cure it the rest of the way. That is going to prevent it from shifting around, from sinking down under your epoxy and getting covered with glitter. So just a hack if you've not seen that. And then this is where I was fixing the mess up with the checkered vinyl. Originally, I had used some black acrylic paint and kind of taped it off and stenciled it with just a paintbrush, and you could see the difference in the color of the original spray paint and the acrylic paint that I used to fix it. So I epoxied it, and then I just cut out some black vinyl and covered over where I used the acrylic paint. You can't even tell I messed it up, and I knew I messed it up, and I can't even find it. So once I epoxied over that, I'm going to cut out the wavy lines. Now the template for the wavy line does come with the offset for the this pink and, well, just the black vinyl. Actually, I created an offset at 0.050 for the hot pink vinyl, and I laid that down first, and then I laid down the black. But the Ellie's Crafty Co. PDF file that she gives you, it does come with the offset. So I'm just going to lay that down along the wavy lines. You may have to help it a little bit just to get it in place. And then I'm going to put that on my turner once I've got both the black and the hot pink laid down. And I did put polyacrylic over top of it just to make sure none of that vinyl lifted, because it was pretty thick. That hot pink vinyl, that's actually from a local vinyl shop here near me. And it's pretty thick. It's a gorgeous neon color, but it is a little bit thicker than normal. So I didn't want that to lift, so I did put that polyacrylic on it. And then after that polyacrylic was dry to the touch, I put on a coat of Flynn Sisters epoxy. I used about 40 milliliters, actually maybe it was 50 if I'm thinking correctly, for my final coat. And because I was going over the black checker, I didn't want a lot of micro bubbles to show through, so I epoxied it and then came back about 20 minutes later, and after torching it the first time, I came back and torched it a second time once those micro bubbles had a chance to rise to the top. There weren't a ton of them, but there was a lot of black in this design, and I just didn't want it to show through. So after that, about 25 minutes, I let that spin overnight and cure, and once that was fully cured, the entire tumbler was finished. So that's it for this design. I hope you guys loved it. Please, if you replicate it, do it the easy way. Don't do it the hard way that I showed you guys. Just glitter it, checker it, then apply the vinyl over top of the glitter. So if you replicate this, don't forget to tag me. I would love to see your design. Don't forget to comment and like and subscribe if you're not already, and I will see you guys next weekend.